Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. I'm Regina Sherry, your host. And as always, I'm so happy to know that you are taking time out of your day, which I'm sure for many of you, it's been a busy day, a tiring day, maybe even, but you are now relaxing, hopefully. And I'm thanking you for spending some of your relaxation time here with us on the Winning Women Talk Show. And as you know, if you're a regular viewer or listener, I want to thank you. And you know that each week we try to bring a different woman onto the show to share her journeys. And that journey is what I call the journey to success, because whatever it is that she's been through, gone through, and or heading toward right now, it's that something that has led her to or is leading her to doing what she is passionate about, what satisfies her and fulfills her in her life. And so that for us is really the description of a winning woman, except that add ons are that we've found the common factors that they all share is that they give back to the community, that the work they do benefits someone else, and that in many cases, and when I say many, I will say 95% of the time, their faith is a sustaining factor in the work that they do. So I ask now that you join us in this show tonight because we love to hear from our viewers and our listeners. And we invite you to give us a call or email us to share your questions that you may have for our guest. And the contact information is 781 384 5587. I'll say that again, 781 384 5587, or you can email us at Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. I am happy as you have been watching this beautiful lady here with me. She is a familiar name to some of you who have been with us since our radio days, but she is also for me a friend of 30 years almost. And
Yeah.
so today I am pleased to introduce Jessie St. Cyr Esquire, who is an attorney and management consultant specializing in anti-discrimination and anti-harassment practices, and including workplace investigations, policy development, audits, compliance, and leadership training. She has over 20 years of organizational and board level leadership experience. She has advised senior leaders on employment law and workforce development matters and practices. Previously, and in other words, prior to that, she served as a Massachusetts state official responsible for employment law matters and award winning. And I say that because that's what they were, award winning workforce strategies. And she spent time transforming HR practices and programs. She actually received a citation for her distinguished service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and she was awarded the Young Alumnus Award for her exemplary policy and administration work in the public sector by her alma mater, where she and I first met, Gordon College, where she served as a board trustee. And she also served as a board director for Freedom House and the YMCA Training Incorporated. Jessie is an ordained deacon. She is a music ministry psalmist at the Potter's House in Texas. She's a fellow of the Harris Institute's Oxford and Cambridge University colloquies and of the Alliance for Black Pentecostal Scholarship in Africa. So, as you see, she's international as well as nationally engaged. Jessie is a speaker and a trainer for Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education, chambers of commerce, universities, and other government entities. She earned her undergraduate degree from Gordon College, her master's in strategic leadership from North Central University, and her Juris Doctorate from Thurgood Marshall Law. She is a member of the Massachusetts Bar Association as well. So, welcome, Jessie, to the Winning Women Talk Show.
Thank you so much, Regina. I get embarrassed with all of that, but thank
I
you.
know. But you know that's one of the things that I find is there's a humility in most of you women winning women, and tooting your own horn is not always, talking about what you do is great, but tooting your own horn is not necessarily a comfortable feeling.
Not
And
at
so I want to take that moment to make sure that our listeners and viewers know that this person they're looking at or listening to right now is someone very special and definitely distinctive and distinguished.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from you, that's certainly a compliment.
So, as always, we're going to ask you to start from the beginning and tell all of us a little bit about Jessie St. Cyr and where your roots are from growing up and your trajectory to doing what you currently do.
Mm. Well, the first thing that I start with is that I'm a believer. I love God above all things, and I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and have been since the age of 12. I certainly remember the very day that I accepted Christ in my life.
Mhm.
It was a hot April in one of the early back in the days. So when I was 12 years old, and I recall the day. So that's the first thing I share about myself. I am the third of 10 children, third oldest of 10 children. My parents are from Haiti. And so I'm a first generation American. My father has since passed. And yes, I grew up in a very big household, and the three things that were important to my parents were God, family, and education. And so, education was our way to the middle class or upper class, and to do well in those three arenas was really important to my family. And so, that's really the lens that I live through. God, family, and education, and educating people and equipping them there. That's why I do what I do, providing leadership training, and speaking on leadership and the work of the Holy Spirit, whether it's here in the United States or abroad in UK or in Africa with the various groups. Or if I'm not speaking in terms of spiritual matters, I'm speaking to attorneys, engineers, medical doctors, and managers and executives anywhere about the role of leadership and the responsibility we have to recognize that our positions are for a moment, but how we impact people is really for a lifetime.
Yes.
And so our legacy is not in the titles and positions that we hold. Our legacy is in the people that we impact for good. And I should underscore good.
Yeah.
So those are
So
the things I say about me.
I understand um, this leadership, strategic planning, strategic organization, and all of that because I'm focused on I'm the oldest of 10 children.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, in a sense, Jesse, you, as the oldest sibling, have been a second mother to your siblings,
mm,
right? And you were expected to have a leadership role with them. I'm sure your
yeah,
parents at a certain point decided you have to set the example, you have to do this and do take charge and do some things and take initiatives and make decisions
mm,
with regard to dealing with them. So I can understand where all of that type of influence and
yeah.
understanding come from. But what was it that made you decide this was the direction you were going to head into? Because you were basically, it looked like, heading for law school. I mean,
Mhm,
and you went there,
mhm.
and yet you're doing consulting, for workforce. dynamics of HR or employment, etc. I mean, there's still leadership, training, and speaking, and all of those things. How did you spin off, or you haven't spin off? You're literally living in two worlds of law and organization, right? Or something, leadership, law and leadership. I'll do it, LLC, Law Leadership Consulting.
Yes. I actually, that's great. I probably should. I'm gonna take that. So I live in both worlds, and I feel like I live in three worlds, to be honest. So there's the legal aspect of what I do through the consulting company. It's considered compliance, but the one thing, there's a thread that, or a common theme that I saw in my organizational leadership roles, is that a lot of people who moved into those roles were subject matter experts who had expertise or technical skills in a particular area, but they weren't always adequately or properly equipped for their roles as organizational leaders. So the skill sets that make you exceptional as an attorney, or as a doctor, an engineer, or a teacher, or a preacher even, are not necessarily the skill sets that will help you to become an effective leader over people.
Right.
Because when you're engaging people, you have to learn to listen to them, because communication is listening, and it's not just speaking, but also how to empower them, how to delegate, how to keep them accountable, how to prepare them and position them for success, and how to showcase their talents so that they can build confidence, so that you're, as a leader, not the only person managing and responsible for various things. And the tie to the law is that when I was brought in, I was deputy assistant treasurer for the Commonwealth, then appointed deputy treasurer, and I was also employment counsel. So I had many hats. But I came in, I was brought in to address scandals. And the second role that I had was to address 30 years of legacy issues, which were tied into leadership, was tied into employment law practices, it was tied into workforce practices, or employee issues. And so what I saw was that a number of our legal issues in terms of employment law matters were directly tied to the lack of leadership training and preparation and accountability. And so so I saw that connection, and I worked on providing, well, really doing an overhaul around all of our practices, but also providing the training and addressing legal matters as well. So if there were complaints, internal complaints or lawsuits, my role was to address those. And thankfully, we didn't lose any of them. But it was because we had put the proper things in place to ensure that our managers and leaders understood their roles, understood how to engage people properly, and not to run afoul of employment laws or other laws in the state and in federal government as well. So, or federal laws, I should say. Yeah. So there's a connection between leadership and the law, and my goal is to help leaders bridge that gap by equipping them for their roles. So, and I do some pro bono legal work as well. And I've been doing that for some time. So I live in both spaces.
You live in a lot of spaces, yes, Jesse. Yes. But let me just say this. When you identified this leadership, and I'll say attribute deficit, okay, in the environment, was the training and educating with these individuals, creating the training and education opportunities within the organizations, was that a response from you, or was that already an expectation when you were hired?
It wasn't an expectation. I was really given carte blanche with both of the roles. And then we're speaking specifically about my state government leadership roles in Massachusetts. So I was told, hey, we know your background, we know what you've done, we know you have the expertise. We trust you to take these areas and overhaul them. It was literally an overhaul, and so I, did my audits of our practices, both on the legal side and also the organizational side, and brought together a team of people to help me implement changes. But partnering with executives, my peers, managers, to help them understand the return on investment for them to become better leaders was really what helped me to ensure that the implementation was successful. Because partnership, I mean, given the things that I was doing for the Commonwealth, the partnerships were really important because I couldn't work in a silo while I was responsible for this. We had business units or other units within the organization that were responsible for delivering services. And so ensuring that they understood why this was best for them, for their employees, and for the organization. And most importantly, the constituents, the residents, and those who travel through Massachusetts, that helped me to be successful in what I was doing. So, yeah.
So literally were you living on the road, so to speak, in the Commonwealth, going from I don't know, or were you primarily at the State House, or were you traveling to different towns and municipalities and doing some of this training or advising and consulting? Uh, how did that work?
So in the deputy treasurer role, as when I was employment counsel for that agency, it was really meeting with executives and advising them on employment law matters, or if there were tricky employee relations issues, advising them through that, or if there were complaints and lawsuits, investigations, navigating that with them. Or on behalf of the organization. There are times with the transportation department and with the Treasury that I was traveling throughout the Commonwealth. But the goal of leadership is not to be the end all be all, but to equip the people who work with me and for me to carry the message, to do the work as well. So having a strong team of people who could do the policy work, who can advise other leaders, who can support leaders and employees as needed, was really how I was able to reach people throughout the Commonwealth. And one of the things that we were able to do, I hosted on behalf of the Transportation Department and the MBTA. I hosted a LEAD program, it's the Leadership Exchange and Development, I hope I got that right, program, which was a group of transit and transportation leaders and executive throughout the New England area and Canada. And Governor Charlie Baker was one of our keynote speakers. And we had CEOs and transit executives and transportation executives from throughout New England and Canada who were part of this week-long program. And we were able to share with them some of our best practices because they were going through the same thing. Now, I could not have hosted and been able to share all of those successes and some of the challenges that we still had to address without just an exceptional team of people. And building myself as a leader and being more confident as a leader, addressing my own insecurities about letting go, helped me to be able to equip them because it was to my benefit that my team was successful. And I remember the general counsel, previous general counsel told me, it only helps you that your team is doing well. And so letting go and delegating and preparing them to take on more responsibility allows you to have more reach and impact. as leaders, we're not going to be everywhere, and we're not going to be able to do everything.
Right. I think I'm really engrossed in what you're talking about, because one of the things that has always amazed me, and I don't mean to offend anyone who's in this sector, but corporate America. I just have a lot of friends who are somewhere doing in different types of corporations. But one of the things, when they become these mega companies with 30,000 and more employees, one of the things that has always perplexed me is, why do I hear employees talking about their bosses, right? Because they don't know how to manage people or to lead them or to create
Mhm.
a team atmosphere or energy, right? And I've always just been perplexed at how these corporations can grow and do such great
Mm.
business. And I always say, when people say something about it, I'll say it's product. It's only product. It's only product, because I just
Mhm.
can't imagine when I've heard some of the chaos and craziness. But you were, I would have expected that in the government sector, so to speak, not in corporate America.
Mhm.
And yet, you had this opportunity to say it's important no matter what sector you're in. And especially when you're dealing with compliance issues and all of these other, to, you had a perfect environment to, not perfect per se, but perfect environment, and to take a lead, start a pattern, right, of protocol, if you will, in developing leaders within the leadership system, right? And
Mhm.
what were the challenges? What were the challenges? Now, don't answer me yet, because I got to take a quick break for a sponsor. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. And for those of you who have just joined us, you have been listening to and viewing Jessie St. Cyr Esquire, and we have been talking about her work and her leadership. She has a consulting company that specifically deals with consulting for leadership. And I am dying to hear what she's going to come back and tell us with regard to challenges in her field and endeavors. But again, we want to hear from you. The This is not just about being in, and I'll say it for myself, mesmerized by her. But we want to know what you're thinking. What are you picking up? What do you want to know? We'd love to hear your comments, your questions. Call us 781-384-5587. Or if you're phone shy, it's very simple. Email me, Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. We're going to take a quick break for one of our sponsors. Don't go far. It's a very short break. We'll be right back.
Do you know how many people are harmed by domestic violence every day? Every minute, 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner. Do you know what the leading cause of homelessness is for women? Domestic violence. Do you know how domestic violence ends? Through your help. If you know someone who needs help from abuse, please call Portal to Hope at 781-338-7678. Portal to Hope is a survivor-driven team seeking to provide shelter, safety, and a pathway to gaining an abuse-free life. Call Portal to Hope at 781-338-7678. We are here to help.
And we're back with our guest tonight, Jessie St. Cyr Esquire. So you had a moment to think. So when you're talking about all these many things that you um, are busy working with, partnerships and all of these things, and yet you're developing leaders. Um, what were some of the challenges that you confronted as I'm going to ask particularly, I know there are more than this, but as a woman and as a woman of color, but also as a young woman.
So one of the things I remember, when I was my first role, I think I was assistant. treasurer or maybe deputy treasurer by that time, someone said to me, well, someone asked me, how did you get here?
Ooh.
Literally. And I was like, my answer was God, right? There's really no pushback when you just say God, because that's exactly how I get there. But it was, just the education and some of the experience that I had. But it was a massive open door, and I was, I think maybe 29 or 30 at the time, and so most of the people in those roles were 20, 30 years my senior, right? So there was a lot of underestimating me that was happening. So that was one of the challenges. But with that, it's just doing the work, and the work will speak for itself. And the work that I did now, almost 10 to 14 years ago, is still beneficial to the Commonwealth. It's foundation for a lot of things that are still happening. So that the work spoke for itself. And I think it was just learning not to waste time trying to feed into someone else's projections of where I should and should not do and where I should and should not be. I didn't allow people's thoughts or insecurities to limit me. The other challenge that I had was, the phrase we've always done it this way, to me is like, just please stop saying that. Like, just stop. It didn't work. It's not working, and we can't move forward with it. We've always done it this way. And so I think with that challenge, it was recognizing there were traditions and practices that made sense, were appropriate for the organizations. And even as a consultant now, it's the same thing, right? I still hear the same things, but it's just identifying the patterns and practices and traditions and cultural norms in an organization that makes sense to bring forward, right? You don't throw out everything. You identify what works and keep working on that and improving that, but then to infuse the patterns, practices, policies, and programs that make sense for the organization, that align with their mission and goals for the future. And then, connecting with leaders and communicating to them how it also benefits them as well, and how it helps them to deliver, whether it's services or products, or in ministry, how it helps the congregation, because pastors and bishops and spiritual leaders are not exempt for that. Just because you can preach doesn't mean that organizationally you have all that you need to be able to shepherd your people and to lead your team. So that was the second challenge. I've had some, challenges, of course, around color and race and gender and all of that. But I know that sometimes people use those things because they have a narrative, a script, a mental script about how you should act and how you should be. And my goal is not necessarily to unearth that and help them walk through it. I am not your therapist. I am here. I'm occupying space. You like it, you don't like it. That really is not my problem. However, I am going to continue to work with you. And if you want to partner with me so that we both can be successful around these things that we're doing in the organization, then we'll work together. But if you become an obstacle, I will treat you as an obstacle, and we'll navigate that challenge accordingly. Not just with disrespect or not with attitude or whatever. But okay, so I understand that you're not going to partner with me. Then let me see how I can navigate you so that I can ensure that the people who work with you and for you get what they need to be successful. So,
what have you found to be, regardless male or female or anything else, what have you found to be a couple of them of things that they are most resistant to? When you're trying to help them grow in their leadership capacity.
So fear is something. Fear of the unknown, of course, is something that we all deal with, and whether as an attorney, as an executive consultant, That is one of the challenges. I've seen leaders who, it's not necessarily that they're bad leaders, but they're afraid to make difficult decisions and keep people accountable. And I've seen where employees have wreaked havoc on the organization, have filed multiple lawsuits, are threatening the organizations with all kinds of claims. And while the organization is responsible, and as an attorney, I was responsible for investigating that, when we find that that the issue is not as they presented, then there's a responsibility to the leader to keep people accountable in terms of their performance, and to still keep those people accountable. So that was an issue that I saw and I continue to see, is that you have leaders who are just afraid to keep people accountable because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid of lawsuits. Lawsuits will come. It's just, if you've been a leader for some time, you've seen a lawsuit or two. Now, of course, you don't want to be in an organization that is fraught with all kinds of issues, and there are lawsuits all the time because there are things that should have been addressed and things that should have been put in place to prevent certain things from happening. But just because there's a lawsuit doesn't necessarily mean that you did something wrong. You have someone who may be disgruntled and has a perception of what happened or how they were harmed in the organization, but doing what's right towards the employee, investigating it, taking the complaint seriously. But if in fact there are other issues at hand, and that complaint is really just a way to avoid accountability, you still have to keep people accountable. So navigating tricky things like that is something that I've had to also address with leaders. So, and it's a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity, because sometimes the people that really need to be accountable and are not held accountable, if you have the right leader who's willing to do right by that employee and the other employees, then maybe it's an employee who will then better perform and shape up, if you will. Or if they don't shape up, it's time to help them exit the organization. And there's a way to do that as well.
Yeah. Discussing that exit strategy. Oh,
Yeah.
I have a couple of emails here. I want to read one to you because it seems very interesting. Good evening, Jesse. One of the new bosses that I'm now under is having a hard time delegating responsibilities to me. She has not indicated that there is a trust issue, so I don't understand why she wouldn't have me be more involved. She is my senior, so I understand she feels responsible for the entire team and the project outcome. But at what point should I become concerned that I could be being held back? I'm a hard worker and have been given accolades for my work, and I'm respectful of her role, and I don't try to go above rank. I understand this is a broad question, but what issues do you consider could be at play?
Yeah, it is a big question, but without knowing all of the facts, there are a couple of questions I would say to ask yourself, right? Number one, how long have you been in that role? And how long has your manager been in that role? Because if it's a new manager, maybe they're trying to understand how things work. Maybe they're not comfortable yet, and then they're dealing with their own challenges around the responsibilities that they have, and they're trying to identify who to delegate the responsibilities to. To have you performed in a way that would allow the manager to feel comfortable delegating to you. And your own opinion about your performance is one thing, but maybe asking some of your trusted peers or maybe mentors about how you show up would help you understand if there are some blind spots about how you perform. The other thing I would ask you to think about is, how do you approach your manager, right? Around these responsibilities and how they might be able to delegate some of that to you. taking the time to maybe schedule a conversation, just say, I know there's a lot on your plate. I have these, I've been doing these types of duties and I have been successful around this. I would love to take on more work, and to communicate that in a way that demonstrates that you see the leader, or you see your manager, and you want them to be successful. And part of their success is helping you to be successful as well. So the way you communicate that you want to take on more, and how you've demonstrated that, I think is important. And the last thing I would say in terms of guidance is, if you have some colleagues or peers that you trust, or a mentor that you trust who's worked with that leader and has been given more work to do, then you can ask them, how did they approach the situation? And maybe you can tweak that for your own situation and have that conversation with your manager.
Wow. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I everything you said, I don't think people usually consider,
Yeah.
right? That because when you see or experience something like this, the defenses rise up, right? What's wrong
Yes.
with me?
Yeah.
What did I do? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm trying to, what's wrong with me, right? You start that introspective assessment of yourself, and instead of doing exactly everything you said, to me speaks of get the feedback, get the
Mm-hmm.
information before you become suspect that there's an issue. And that speaks, I guess, as well to not only the judge in you, the lawyer in you, but
Mm-hmm.
also that person who is helping people to realize that employment, right, is not always, employment issues are not always around being in a hostile environment or
Mm-hmm.
feeling that people are negative to you. Sometimes it's your perception of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things I train on as I do the leadership training is it's a session called the Leader Within. Our self-awareness or emotional intelligence, how we see ourselves, how people experience, how we show up, how we manage relationships, are really important, because you could be projecting onto someone an insecurity. And you might attribute that to your age, your sex, your race, and all those things. And it may or may not be the case. So taking the time to do the introspection is important, but going outside of yourself and asking people you trust about how you show up, because there may be things that you don't necessarily see. And after you've done that work, and then you've had those conversations with your manager, if then you're not getting the additional responsibilities, and you're looking to stretch and to grow, then at that point, maybe it's time to have another conversation or to look elsewhere. But leaving is not always the first choice. I think it's the last one, especially if you only after you've exhausted all of the other things that I talked about. Yeah.
So another one says, there's a lot here, but I'm going to extract the primary question at the end, is what happens when you believe that people are not being open to your recommendations and suggestions? How do you regroup? What do you do to pump up yourself? That's what I was like, pump up yourself.
So I would answer that question similar to the way I answered the previous question, is how are you communicating, right? So I always start with me. The only person I can control in any environment is me, right? I can influence other people, I can empower people, I can engage them. How I engage them is really important. So how do I communicate those recommendations? Are those recommendations communicated in a way that is collaborative, tone, attitude, facial expression, the language you use, and the what's in it for me approach? will always help, meaning, okay, I'm making this recommendation, but I'm making this recommendation in silo. It doesn't speak to what the person needs. It doesn't speak to what the organization needs. But if the recommendation is thoughtful, you're doing it in a collaborative way, then I would do the same. Ask, peers, trusted mentors, colleagues, hey, am I communicating this in a way that isn't clear? Am I communicating this in a time where maybe it's not appropriate? And people, when it's not appropriate, it's not received well, right? So if you're making a recommendation and it's the end of the meeting, people want to go on to the next thing, it's gonna, people are not paying attention. Or if it's, you have an agenda for a meeting and it's not time to make recommendations, then people might listen, but they're going to move on to the next person. The other thing is, I've been on boards, I've been in executive meetings, I've been in executive, that people will make really good recommendations, but there's some bias, right? So whether they're a woman or a person of color, there in those situations there was a clear bias, that this woman wasn't being heard, and it was a pattern that I had seen. And so maybe sharing. So in that situation, I'll tell you what I did. And this was a board meeting, because I saw this woman over and over again and other women were not being heard. What I would do is say, I think so and so just made a wonderful suggestion. I think we need to circle back to that. So maybe sharing your idea or your recommendation with someone who can then support it and reinforce it in a meeting, and then give you credit for the same thing that you just said, is really important. So it's really sharing that recommendation to see how receptive people would be, and if when you share it, that person or other persons would then have your back essentially in the meeting to reinforce that was a great recommendation, and to credit you with that recommendation, I think is a really good strategy, because sometimes it really is, people overlook people who look like me, because they're like, well, okay. And then someone else in the same meeting shares the same thing. And I've seen that over and over again. And it's like, it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm like, well, I just said that. So what I learned is to speak up for myself and say, you know what? Thank you for echoing what I just shared. I just wanted to reiterate X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Or yes, you know what? I just shared that. Maybe everyone didn't hear me before, but what I would like to emphasize here and underscore that, yes, that was my idea. I'm not saying bluntly that's my idea, because then that's childish. It's not professional. It's, oh, thank you so much for echoing what I shared earlier.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like it's combative. So how we communicate, how we share recommendations, I think is important. Yeah. But I think I shared a couple of ideas there that they can take.
Well, I want to tell you something. Anyone who is in a top management at any corporation, company, any type of entity, institution, if you're listening tonight, I know you're thinking to yourself, we need to have her come to our business. If you're thinking that way, because listen, I know she's going to give us information before the end of this show on how to get to St. Cyr Consulting, because I've been hearing some wonderful things. And sometimes we do things so often, we have some successes and we think, that's it, I've got it. But you may not have it. You may just have gotten the right people with the right mindset at the right time to do that same thing over and over again. But I know if I were a CEO or of a company or in a position where contracting outside of the company for consulting services was in my purview, I'd have you come. Even if I didn't have an issue like in leadership area, I'd love to have you come. But my question for you is, do you find, and I think I kind of know the answer. I'm going to assume the answer is yes. But do you find that when you're doing leadership training, consulting in the office, in the company, that the reception isn't quite what it is versus when you have a conference, and so everyone knows she hosts conferences several a year, so mega conferences, go to her website, you'll find out about them. But do you find that when people are in a conference environment, so now they don't feel targeted, they don't feel that they're inadequate, and they're much more open and receptive? Or am I wrong?
So, it just I wanted to tweak one thing. So I don't host conferences. I speak at conferences and I host training programs
Oh,
and
okay,
training sessions. Just wanted to be clear.
there you go.
Thank you. I've hosted conferences for my employers, my past employers. Um,
Okay.
but so a few things. I think it's how you train, and it's not creating a it's really how I deliver and how I train people, and I think it's engaging leaders by sharing my stories and sharing the stories of other leaders like you. You're one of the leaders that I point to, um, and I share the stories of how, okay, you're not alone in this situation. And the situation that we're in and why I'm here is not unique to this organization, whether it's the public sector, it's the private sector, it's ministry. Leadership issues and leadership opportunities are really the same. They're just nuanced based on the type of industry or the type of service or product you deliver. But humans are humans everywhere, right? And we all need the same things and we all deal with the same challenges. And so, starting from that place, but also sharing what the return is in terms of how they lead, how they impact, the type of impact they have, and they leave the legacy that they build, the amount of work they're able to do, the things that they're able to achieve, and how these types of trainings will help them to deliver and really even get themselves out the way so that they can partner with more people. Right? Because if we're dealing with insecurities and challenges and our own scripts and narratives that limit us, we're not going to be able to engage people. And then in return, we may have disgruntled employees who perceive our insecurities and our projections as they don't like me, or they have a prejudice, or they have a bias against me because of my age, race, sex, gender, disability, or whatever else, right? So if we can equip people to be better, more effective leaders, that also helps in terms of reducing the types of legal risk to the organization. So I think, to your question, it's the approach. Also letting leaders know that they're not in this by themselves and their situations are not unique, but there's help, there's patterns, practices, policies, and work that they can do that have helped a lot of leaders across various industries and professions be very successful.
Okay.
So the approach is important.
So I see my time winding down. I've got to take another quick break. And again, thank you for the emails that are coming in. And I'm not trying to ignore anyone's emails, but I do want our guest to have the time to talk about those things. And I'm going to give her a heads up because I want to switch gears with her and talk about being a deacon at the Potter's House. And
So I was a deacon at Jubilee Christian Church. I am in the
yes,
music ministry at the Potter's House.
okay.
Yes, I'm happy to talk about that.
But in the music ministry as well, I wanted to hear about that in such a mega church. But again, call us. There, it's a real simple thing. 781-384-5587. And the lines are open. And you can email me, Regina at RGB Internet Radio as well. As I said, we're going to take another quick break for one of our sponsors. We'll be right back. Don't go too far.
Hi, my name is Anthony DePiro, and I'm an employee here at Sabatino Mastrocola Insurance Agency, where I've worked for about 6 years. Our agency is a full-service agency. We specialize in auto, home, flood, life, and other insurance needs. We have a registry running service. We offer professional claim assistance, and many other things that will help you throughout the process of getting new insurance. I mainly specialize in commercial insurance, such as apartments, restaurants, offices, contractors, retail, and things of that nature. But the rest of the team here also specializes in home, auto, and other lines. We merged with Mastrocola Insurance about 2 years ago, and we're proud to house them here at 519 Broadway along with our office, and we all work together to service your needs. Stop by anytime here at 519 Broadway or give us a call at 617-387-7466 or visit our website at www.sabatino-ins.com.
And we are back. Listen, if I just wanted to say, we have a variety of sponsors. If you like the videos you're seeing, or are interested in being a sponsor for this show, we would love to know that as well. And you can find out about how to be a sponsor on the Winning Women Talk Show or the other shows that are offered on RGB Internet Radio. And all you have to do is go to rgbinternetradio.com or rgbworldenterprises.com to find out about how we do marketing. All right, we're back. So, Jesse, you had a little time to think about what you're going to say, but we really want to know because if you've been paying attention, her faith and her belief in God is first in her life. And she said it, God, family, and then whatever,
Education.
yeah, whatever else there may be in your life. But tell us.
So when I was ordained deacon, I remember when I got the letter that I was being considered as a candidate for deacon at Jubilee Christian Church in Boston. First of all, it's a tremendous honor. It's very humbling, and then you think about how you're not worthy of such a calling, such a role, and one of the things I would say is that it just helped me understand the inner workings of church better. And very quickly after I was ordained deacon with a class of other deacons, I was asked to lead the diaconate body for Jubilee. And Jubilee is a mega church in Massachusetts, I think one of the largest in New England. And at that time we had over 200, I think, deacons in more than one campus. And so the pastors who were over it asked me if I would take on their role. I'm like, wait, I've been a deacon for like a year or two. Like, what are we doing? Just wait. But I think all the things, my childhood, the leadership work I've done in ministry as a teenager, at Gordon College, then in government and business, all of that really prepared me to lead in ministry. And now being able to do it for my church, I think was a tremendous honor. And I worked with some of the most amazing, gifted and loyal people. They were loyal to the work of God, and that was supporting and equipping and really being an extension of God's hands and feet, right, to the body. And so we were responsible for a lot of things, and I think we did some of the deacons even preach. I did Bible study, new converts, baptism, financial support, all of it, advising the pastors and leaders on various issues, and challenges and opportunities and events. It was an incredible experience, and I honor the founder, Bishop Gideon Thompson, and his wife Yvette Thompson, and the leaders, the senior leaders of the church, Pastor Mona Thompson and Pastor Matthew Thompson, for that opportunity, and Chris Sumner and Katani Sumner, who were my advisors at the time. So, and I'm sure there are many people I'm forgetting, but forgive me, it's my head, not my heart. And I've been in music ministries as long as I can remember. I started singing at the age of 7. You've heard me sing, I think, a while back at Gordon, and I sing when I'm in the UK and also in Africa. I sing gospel and also classical. And at the Potter's House, I was in the choir, and I was also in the back line. Because of the injury, I sustained an injury a few months ago. I haven't been singing, but I am still in the music ministry at our Fort Worth campus, and look forward to singing again very soon. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you because you have shared with us some amazing, incredible things that I think have been helpful to some people tonight. I'm sure they were taking notes, but also everything you said, Jesse, tonight says volumes, speaks volumes about who you are, about your abilities and your strengths. And I've always admired people who can persuade, compel, lead, and convince people to consider transformation.
Yes.
And leadership development is transformative. And having known you when you were a student, you've always been a leader, and you've been a transformative leader. I watched that part of you at Gordon. And so I just want to thank you so much for, I don't know the people that your work, your training has impacted, but I can just imagine that they are so much better for having spent that time with you and listening to you. And if they haven't listened to you, I'm sure they're not having a good time of it. But anyway, I want to thank you. You truly are a winning woman. And just thank you for the time you spent with us tonight. And please tell everyone how they can find out more about you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Regina. It is truly an honor. Love you to the moon and beyond. So they can find me on www.saintcyrconsulting.com, SAINTCYR consulting.com. If they want to reach me, info@saintcyrconsulting.com, or they can send an email there. And I will respond to the emails. Certainly, I'm on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. If you just type in St. Cyr Consulting or Jesse St. Cyr, then you can find me there and message me, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, you heard it. Just remember, Saint, I know you know how to spell that, and Cyr, CYR. consulting.com
Mhm.
and look up Saint Cyr. You'll find her. Trust me, you will find lots of stuff about her. So thank you, Jesse. Thank you, each and every one who spent time with us this evening, listening or viewing this show. We thank you, and I hope you'll be with us again next week, same time, same place, to hear another winning woman share her story. We thank you for spending time with us and have a great rest of your evening.